biological interactions between species are incessant in nature. They are even essential to life. Beneficial or fatal, these associations are influenced by the environment that shelters them. In their own way, they tell us about the landscapes and bring them to life. Above all, they remind us that ecosystems are fragile ecological chains with precarious balances, and more than ever, it is urgent for us to preserve them. Rarely has a landscape marked the identity of a territory as much. This landscape is the Macki shrubland. In Corsica, it covers a quarter of the surface of the island. The name comes from the Genoese macchia, which designated areas of dense vegetation on their maps. This decor, undeniably thick, covers the Mediterranean rim, shaped by this very particular climate. Dry and scorching in summer, watered by ferocious storms when autumn comes. These brutal seasonal variations force the organisms to adapt. Because it takes bravery for the holm oak, the arbutus, the mastic tree to flourish in such climatic stress. Humility, too, for the lavender or even rosemary to survive on these arid and stony grounds. A whole bouquet of stubborn species that have become the accomplices over time to a multitude of creatures to whom they sometimes render unexpected services. In the heart of Corsica, there is thyme and oregano. These plants, emblematic of the macki, are essential for a prodigious biological interaction. It all starts with a butterfly, the large blue, whose delicate lacework is highlighted by bluish-gray reflections speckled with black. The species is strictly protected, as its complex reproductive cycle is fragile. It flies from May to July in a budding macki, where many flowers are in bloom. Adult, this butterfly only has a few days to live. Just time enough to feed itself, and above all, to engender the future generation. And above all, procreate, and at all costs, even if it means showing off their wings, while taking part in the grand mating ballet. Once fertilized, the female lays her eggs, but only on oregano or thyme. They are the second protagonists of this association of benefactors. They are the host plants to this species, meaning they host the large blue during its life cycle. About 60 eggs are laid on as many flower buds. After hatching, the larvae feed on the petals. And as Mother Large Blue doesn't live long enough to take care of her little ones, she entrusts them to others. And that's an extraordinary process. The larva drops to the ground. Unable to fend for itself, it resorts to a tactic in which the victim is an ant. The Myrmica scabrinotis, third partner of this biological interaction. The large blue larva secretes a substance that will make it pass for an ant of this species, a chemical camouflage of sorts. A little hesitation on the part of this ant. But in the end, the subterfuge works. The larva is recognized as a member of the colony. It is taken to the burrow, where it will spend the winter, fed by all the workers, and occasionally feasting on the eggs of those who welcome it. The following spring, the larva has grown. Now comes the time of the chrysalis. The butterfly emerges in the anthill itself and only has a few moments to fly away if she doesn't want to be devoured. A few days to live, feed, and reproduce. Such is the life of the large blue. The maquis is what specialists call a transition environment. In other words, it is the story of the reconquest by plants of deteriorated land, struck by misfortune. It is this miraculous moment of the resurrection that will result a few decades later in a forest. The starting point of this great natural novel is an event that is sometimes accidental, often caused by humans. Abandonment of agricultural land, massive logging, or more frequently, a fire. Gargantuan flames regularly devour the maquis. Hundreds of acres go up in smoke. But paradoxically, in nature, fire is sometimes an opportunity. Take the cistus. This plant is called pyrophyte. That is to say that it needs fire to reproduce. It stimulates the growth of its seeds remaining underground. On the ashes, the cistus grows quickly, spreads fast. In this manner, it limits soil erosion and creates a breeding ground for the regrowth of other species. It allows the creation of the first stage of the maquis, a low vegetation, rarely exceeding 3 to 6 feet in height. Beneficial and nourishing cistus. It blooms in April and is one of the first to give color to this landscape. Insects by the thousands crowd onto these flowers, barely out of winter. Blessed be the cistus. And another plant will certainly not contradict this little prayer. On the ground are funny sweets that one would think were forgotten by surprised children. This is cetinet, a plant whose fate is entirely linked to the cistus, because it lives inside the root tissue itself and only comes out at the time of flowering, when it sprouts its multicolored buds. Because of its lack of chlorophyll, the cetinet is unable to ensure photosynthesis and takes from its host the mineral salts and all the organic elements essential to its life. A complete parasitism. A beneficial and vital association for the cetinet, without risk for the cistus. In this landscape, like the cistus, other species play with fire. They have built up an unfailing resistance to survive. The cork oak is well known, especially for its bark. We make corks for our wine bottles. On the other hand, few people know that when the flames attack, this bark clogs. The air no longer circulates. The fire does not spread. The tree is only burned on the surface. Insects take advantage of this fireproof property of the tree to protect themselves from fires. This is the case of Camponotus vagus ants, here in the middle of building a nest. Six feet above the ground, members of a colony dig tunnels in the oak. Because cork also has the advantage of being a flexible and light material, easy to excavate. It can be pierced, carried, and cleared away. Lower down, the rubble is evacuated by others, without any pause, tirelessly. The social division of labor in ant version. Cork is also known to be a remarkable thermal insulator. In a region where average summer temperatures flirt with 90 degrees Fahrenheit, this allows these Camponotus to spend the summer in the cool, comfortably. Ants, involved in many biological interactions with plants. At the edge of a maquis in the west of Corsica, here are some euphorbias, common plants adapted to difficult terrain. Here, to spread their seeds, they can count on the wind. But also on the Messer capitatus. This little Mediterranean ant can't resist the euphorbia seeds. Patient, it doesn't hesitate to take a few minutes to peel the seeds and take them out of their envelope. It makes less to carry. Then it's back to the nest, where this morsel is stored to feed the colony. This biological interaction is called myrmecochory. That means scattering of seeds by the myrmekos, the ants in Greek. The latter are satiated, and for the plant, it's also very beneficial. Because it's not uncommon for the insects to lose the seeds on the way. Freed from their capsule, they come into contact with water and nutrients more quickly, which accelerates their germination. They also swarm far from the main plant, and this favors the dissemination of the plant. With myrmecochory, everyone is a winner, and it makes a happy natural harmony. This beneficial association concerns 11,000 species of plants throughout the world, including nearly 100 in Corsica alone. Years pass. The macki grows. It expands. First the shrubs, then later trees settle in. The landscape stretches towards the sky, up to 50 feet in height. In particular, we come across tits with a melodious song. Following winter, these sparrows begin to prepare their housing. A very cozy corner, embellished with moss, feathers, and animal hair. They generally nest in tree cavities, but don't turn their beaks up at prefab homes placed here by well-meaning humans. "500 nests have been installed in the northwest of the Isle of Beauty by researchers from the University of Montpellier. The latter have been carefully studying populations of blue tits for 45 years. They want to understand how these species adapt to changes in its environment and to climate change. The blue tit? You can't miss it. It's recognizable by the color of its wings and the little cap on its head. The tit spawns in April. One egg per day, and up to 10 eggs per nest. Then, she rests for 2 weeks, the time for her whole little world to come out of the shells. So far, nothing surprising. But researchers have made a discovery. This tit is a fan of herbal medicine. She gleans the leaves of plants known for their medicinal virtues from the macki, such as curry plant, mint, and above all, lavender. She places them in her nest to protect her chicks. These plants, identified by their powerful fragrance, reduce the presence of bacteria on her chick's skin. Their immune system is less stressed, and this allows them to develop better and more quickly, increasing their chances of survival. The blue tit takes advantage of plants without giving any particular advantages to the plants. Specialists call this interaction commensalism. And this bird doesn't stop there. Its presence helps the oaks in particular. Holm oaks and downy oaks represent the majority of the species present in this ecosystem. A symbol of power, they are associated with this landscape and even some beliefs in the Mediterranean zone. For the ancient Greeks, they were the residents of Zeus, the supreme god. Elsewhere, young people passed under their branches to soak up their strength. But though they are strong, they are still vulnerable. These trees are attacked every spring by a butterfly. The green oak tortrix. The damage is impressive. Oak tortrix caterpillars devour young leaves by the thousands. And when a danger obliges them to interrupt their meal, they let themselves fall to the end of a silken thread, then later come back up. Faced with these parasitic invaders, the trees could weaken. But they defend themselves by developing toxins that eliminate some of the attackers. Above all, they can count on the tit, because its larvae are a delicacy very appreciated by its young. Studies have shown that to raise 8 young, a blue tit couple will collect 14,000 to 20,000 insects and caterpillars of all kinds in about 20 days. They're small, but what an appetite. Finally, between the bird and the trees, the relationship is mutual. It's sort of, you feed me, and I get rid of the intruders who would ruin your life. The macki is also an opportunity for all kinds of plants that seek at all costs to find a place in the sun. Their names: brambles, Smilex aspera, wild clematis. They like to repose on the canopy, leaning on others to gain height and light. These plants add to the landscape a feeling that this is a thick, lush environment that fights the elements. A universe that stings and scratches. Ruthless and impenetrable. A long time ago, those escaping authority would hide there, taking to the maquis as one enters into the resistance. Resistance members, whether men or animals. Because this landscape also offers shelter to all kinds of wildlife. The wild boar is at home in the maquis, almost one of its symbolic species. During the day, it is difficult to observe it. The animal is one of the most hunted, and he knows he's being hunted. Its highly developed sense of smell allows it to quickly spot human presence and to flee to hide. So we must wait until nightfall to understand how this mammal interacts with its environment. The boar is a burrowing animal. That is to say, it digs the earth, especially to feed itself. It looks for seeds, mushrooms, roots, but also delights in insects or earthworms. By tirelessly searching the ground, the black beast, as some call it, performs a valuable service to the ecosystem. It loosens the soil by breaking up clods that are too hard, making it lighter and aerating it. Scientists call it bioturbation. By turning it over again, it buries a large number of seeds that it has not consumed and accelerates their rooting. It also allows organic waste to penetrate more quickly into the soil and thus enrich it. Finally, it promotes microbial exchanges between the upper and lower layers of this soil. The boar is therefore far from the pest that we often take him to be. Everything is simply a question of population regulation, perhaps by simply allowing the return of natural predators. In the early morning, one of the masters of the sky appears. With a wingspan of up to 5.5 feet, the royal kite, easily identifiable by its wide triangular tail, which allows the bird to defy the laws of physics with agile acrobatics. Flying skills that make the red kite a formidable hunter. Carried effortlessly by the warm currents, it is on the lookout, imperturbable, while in search of food. It attacks everything, thus regulating some species whose populations have become too abundant. But if a living prey succeeds in fleeing, the kite knows that it can always fall back on a dead animal. And this wild boar carcass will do just fine. A few reconnaissance circles first, to ensure that no threat hovers. The feast can begin. Royal kites are eager scavengers. Like vultures, the chemistry of their digestive system allows them to digest meats that have festered from hours spent in the scorching sun, sometimes even already contaminated. In their own way, these garbage collectors from the sky quickly rid the landscape of these cumbersome remains. Studies have also proven it. They avoid the development of a whole bacterial fauna that would end up contaminating the food chains. The royal kite is really royal. The macki is a rare landscape that only exists in a few corners of the world, with names that invite us to travel. Madero in South America, Mali in Australia, Chaparral in California, Fynbos in South Africa. In France, in the south, with a Provençal or Occitan accent, it is called a garrigue. The same climate, same fauna, same type of flora and plant formations. It is the nature of the earth that changes. Silica in the subsoil of the maquis, limestone for the garrigue. A difference that's innocuous at first sight, but which allowed the development of a treasure. At the foot of a holly oak, all around its trunk, a great void. Almost no grass. As if a slightly overzealous gardener had cleaned up here. This house fairy is neither vegetable nor animal. It's a mushroom. This fungus grows underground, exclusively on the roots of the holly oak. And above all, it doesn't like competition because it eliminates the other plants around it by secreting toxins in order to be the only one to benefit from the oak. This egoist is the truffle. Humans quickly appreciated its intense aroma, its powerful taste which fills the palate, and which makes it a unique dish. Little by little over the centuries, they have learned to tame it, to decipher the mechanisms that preside over its existence. They discovered that it was actually due to a symbiosis, a perfectly balanced biological interaction. On the one hand, the tree is essential to the truffle. On the other hand, it also takes advantage of this relationship, especially in the first years of its life. Everything happens out of sight, in the bowels of the earth. Thanks to the roots of the oak tree, the truffle grows by capturing the carbohydrate, carbon, and other nutrients it needs. The truffle carries out this process through mycelium, microscopic organisms that attach themselves to the small roots of the tree and form the link between the two species. Thanks to them, the oak captures in return via the fungus water and trace elements essential to its own growth. Back to Corsica, where in the maquis, a special beauty is revealed. A plant endemic to the island of Beauty, Sardinia, and the Balearic Islands. The arum pictum flowers in autumn, after the first rains. In just a few days, it climbs high, majestic. And it only takes one night for the flower to bloom. A crucial moment for the reproduction of the plant. Everything plays out in 5 to 6 hours after opening. To attract the flies that will pollinate it, the appendix starts by heating up. And only a thermal camera can measure the phenomenon. Up to 90 degrees. Above all, the plant emits pheromones reminiscent of the stench of a corpse. Flies, deceived by the smell, find it difficult to resist. They turn around it, they hesitate, and land. And then end up slipping inside because the walls of the appendage and the petal are covered with microscopic hairs that attract them downwards. The insects fall inevitably into the floral chamber, located at the base of the flower. There, tiny hairs prevent them from coming out. They will wiggle around in the trap and cover themselves with pollen. To fully understand, you have to open an arum, the cilia that imprison, and below, the plant's sexual organs. After a few hours, the hairs will fall off, releasing the pollinator flies, which will be attracted to another flower, thus fertilizing a new arum pictum. Pollination is one of the most important biological interactions in creation. Everyone wins in general, plants and insects. Not with the arum pictum. The flies here are fooled. They thought they were reveling in a dead animal, but ended up with a good scare for staying in the flower room. A few miles away, a bird without which the maquis might not have the same face. Here is the Eurasian jay, quite elegant indeed, with its adornment of blue checkerboard print that highlights the edge of its wings. This bird is a common species throughout the Eurasian continent. It generally frequents the forest, but also appreciates more particular places, such as hedges or maquis, for the diversity of their species. Because it feeds mainly on seeds, and it's not selfish when it comes to helping. On sunny days, the jay, a far-sighted animal, is already thinking of winter. It collects seeds and fruits, making sure beforehand with its tongue that the object is edible. It accumulates this treasure in a pocket under its beak, and when it is full, it will bury its contents by regurgitating it, seed by seed. But it's out of the question that it benefit others. A little moss, a few leaves to hide everything, and here are some reserves made for the famine season. The jay will easily find its hiding places thanks to the visual cues it has memorized. But memory is fallible. You might be a jay and yet have, as the saying goes, the brains of a sparrow. In this way, 50% of the seeds won't be found or eaten. So they will eventually germinate. The jay accelerates the expansion and regeneration of tree species, which, can be said, are somewhat constrained by their immobility. The oaks and beeches, in particular, can say thank you to the jay. Studies claim that this bird is the best reforester of these species in Europe. Transitional landscapes. The maquis will eventually become a forest. Will it then be threatened? Not really, experts say, because forests are born, live, and die, always leaving the opportunity for an ecosystem to reappear. Perhaps the occasion for the species of the maquis to invent new associations of benefactors.